So, Mr. Kirloskar, you have now been in the industry for over 60 years. You started off back in 1927. Looking back over the years, as an entrepreneur, what major changes have you noticed in the industrial environment in the country in the British days and in the post-independence period?
Well, this very idea that you mentioned are the two fundamental changes. First 20 years of my business life has been under the British India government policy of this industrialization, and the second 40 years is under the independence.
Right. And what sort of challenges did you face then and what sort of challenges do you face now?
Well, the challenge in those days was basically to compete with the imported British goods. And the government of India's policy at that time definitely was not to uh, encourage the local industry as much as possible till the beginning of the Second World War. During the wartime, they have tremendously helped the Indian industry to grow.
Because they wanted that
They
produce.
wanted the products, they wanted these things, and they went all out to help. That was during the independence. Now we had certain advantages and certain disadvantages.
Right.
Now the advantages were from the beginning the government of India under uh, various policies, various ideas in their head, various say for like socialism, like socialistic pattern, at the same time developing Indian industry, employment, and all sorts of things they had a mix up in their head. So the policies have been changing from time to time. In the beginning, the government of India was on the point of substitution for the import goods.
Right.
And consequently, one of the important policy decisions they did take, and which did help the Indian industry, was the prohibition of import of foreign goods. Though it was done for the purpose of saving foreign exchange, but basically it was this, and I think that helped the Indian industry tremendously in the first, I would say, 15 years of independence.
Do you think that they carried out the policy for too long?
Well, I would agree with you that they did carry that policy without thinking. Whether it is too long or too short, they never thought about it. They just went on that policy, and to that extent, the industries sometimes the infusion of other ideas into it, like the control mechanism, control of starting of the industry, control of the permission for this, permission for that. All these things ultimately resulted into unnecessary protection many times. Sometimes where it was necessary, it was not given. That's what has happened.
My point in asking you that question was that the current wave of liberalization of imports, if it had started, let's say, about 15 years ago, would Indian industry have been stronger today?
No. And even today, when you are saying that liberalization of imports,
Right.
now, why have the advantage of imported things to the customer and why not to the manufacturer? If the manufacturer wants to import, say, for instance, money today, he can get the money for about 6%, 7%. But he is required to pay 14, 15, 20%. Now, why don't I get the permission to import the money? I mean, any industry. You see, you want a customer to import a car or anything at the international price. Is the local industrialist at the same conditions as they are outside? This is one side of it.
Right.
The second point is, in the international market, not necessarily the selling price is decided by the cost of the product in that country.
Yeah. You mean there are hidden subsidies by the manufacturer?
Hidden subsidies, there are so many other things, and sometimes even the manufacturer, in order to get the outside market, if I am 90% dependent on the Indian market, I have sold our engines at a cheaper rate outside because I want that market. So this is done by the others also. It is not a question of one-sided thing. So international prices are not necessarily the competitive prices. And you see, the competition can be had on a
Equal to equal basis.
equal conditions and not unequal conditions.
Then what, in your opinion, has been the main weakness of industrial policy after independence? What has been the way? Why is Indian industry not competitive in the world market?
You see, it depended on the basic philosophy of this socialism. Now, socialism means control. Socialism means welfare state. Now, under these two names, particularly the welfare state, Government of India started spending money like anything. Now, this money was not created, not generated, I would say. The wealth was not generated. Without generating the wealth, the Government of India started spending money over a period. That shortage of money ultimately hit by the reduction in the value of the rupee. And the reduction of the value of the rupee ultimately came into our inflation in the country
Right.
of a very high rate. Now, at high rate of inflation, our industry started going down rather. Up to 1965, I would say, just roughly, our industry was growing up pretty rapidly.
That's after the second plan.
Well, I would say we didn't go by the plans. Let's face the fact. The government was making plans and we were going, but nothing was run on the basis of plans. For instance, the first plan never mentioned a chemical industry, but our chemical industry started in the first plan. I don't know whether you know this.
Yes.
You see? So the manufacturers who are doing it, or even the offices, we were starting the industry without the plan. So whatever the development has taken place, because there were certain good ministers, capable ministers, who could see the importance of industries, like Mr. T.T. Krishnamachari, like Manu Bhai Shah. Now these people have really helped the industry to grow. And they were the people who were at that time the ruling, I would say. Pandit Nehru was also for the industry to develop. Now this has happened up to 65. But the control mechanism started growing up to such an extent that it started putting brakes on the development. To get a permission, it took not one man, not one secretary, not one department, but it went to 7 departments, 25 people to meddle with it. Anybody saying yes, anybody saying no. The delay started taking place. And
Right.
one of the things that the government of India never realized, and I don't think they can, that one of the inputs for industrial or business, whether national or international, taking the opportunity, the time input for a business is a very
start,
important thing which government of India still does not understand.
You mean even after the current decontrol and liberalization measures?
The present decontrol is, to my mind, doesn't seem to be a decontrol in the right sense.
You mean it's just cosmetic?
It's just cosmetic in a sense. Now, suppose there is a pipeline and there are 27 valves on it, and there are 27 people, officers sitting there, opening it, closing it whenever they want. Now, if 2 valves are taken out of that, do you mean to say the water will flow easily in it?
I get your point. That is that the decontrol has not reached the administrative levels as yet.
Not only that, but the number of controls which are there, they're enough to stop the development. Releasing 2 or 3 of them does not improve the matters. And what liberalization you are talking about is basically what has happened is liberalization of imports of goods which are being made here under difficult conditions, and they have to compete with unequal conditions.
In other words, you see in this liberalization damaging factor to the Indian industry?
A lot of industries have been damaged. Machine tool industry is one. Any big capital industry has been damaged.
On the other hand, the customer always complains that the Indian industry has not lived up to either its scheduled commitment or its quality or even its price. And they were the ones who put pressure on the government to liberalize so that the Indian industry could come up to the international
Well,
level.
you see, let's take one by one. You mentioned quality. Now, quality of Indian goods has been low, no doubt. The reasons are not necessarily the manufacturer. For instance, I have seen sheets coming from the government factories with a holes in it.
Right.
Now, when you get a sheet like that, how do you expect a manufacturer to produce a good goods? When
No,
you
we
get
cannot differentiate now between government industry and
no,
I'm
no,
saying
I'm
that
not, no,
industry
no.
in general.
What I'm saying is the raw material where it comes from.
Right.
If it does not stand up to the quality, he cannot produce a quality goods. This is one side of it. The second side is the total quality consciousness of the nation. Is pretty low as far as the quality is concerned. Now, for instance, why do you insist the manufacturer should produce a good quality? Why don't I have a good road in a municipality? Why don't I have electricity that is coming in regularly? Now, if you put some water in the milk, we send with the milkman to the jail. But if the electricity fails or electricity does not produce the necessary voltage,
Right.
if it exceeds by this tremendous amount of this way and shortage on the other side, you make a havoc in the whole country. Now, what I'm trying to say is the low quality idea is all over India, not necessarily only in the manufacturers.
You mean it's a national attitude?
It's a national drawback.
Drawback.
And whether it is you name any place, and one of the places I look to the quality of a nation. I'm not talking individual. The public bathrooms in any country. Now you go to any bathroom in India on an airport. The same airport you go to Switzerland, the quality of the bath or the cleanliness there is different. Now why is it different? And that quality difference, you will see that reflected in all the products, not only of the private industry, not of the public industry, even in the government products. So it is unless we change the whole attitude of the people, the customer when he's, I don't know who customer you have in mind, but who is the customer? PWD, why don't they give me a good road? Is the railways, why don't they give me a railway on time? If it is a doctor, why don't I get a proper service from a doctor? Why the hospitals are dirty? You see, I can give you back again for everything, and I don't blame any particular thing. It is the whole national character of it.
If that is the question, then how is Indian industry expected to improve its quality to international standards now that there is an export drive on?
You see, it is a very great proposition unless individually the manufacturer is aware of the quality. And here we have gone quite a ways, particularly in our organization, I'm talking, that 5 years back, myself, my younger brother, his father, my son, and 2 or 3 other officers, we went to Japan specifically with the idea to see how they produce quality goods, what processes they follow, what thinking they do. And we had written earlier, before we went there, that we were coming to see this thing, whether they are ready to show it to us. And I'm very happy to say that they were very happy to show it to us how they are attaining the quality. And one of the things we learn, and which is most important thing, is that the quality of a goods is produced by the top 15% of the management. The 85% of the quality is produced by the 15% of the management, and the 15% of the quality is produced by the people below the management. So blaming the worker that
He is not producing
producing quality is absolutely wrong. It is the management which must know what quality they have to produce.
But don't you agree, Mr. Kirloskar, that a protected market is the very antithesis of good quality, because there is no compulsion on the industry to
I
produce
don't.
quality.
I don't believe in that statement or the basic idea. There is enough competition in the country. Now, when I say enough competition, that means that, say, take the electric company. There are how many electric motor manufacturers are there?
Yes.
Now, there are people who are making. I don't know what the price difference is, but there is enough number. Now, the competition is still very alive. Now, people are competing. They're trying to produce the best they can produce, and they're competing with each other. And there's a good competition that is going on equal terms. You see, they have the same kind of steel
Import,
sheets they get,
yeah.
the same kind of wire they get, the same kind of these things, the same prices. Now, if they have to compete, they are on equal terms. And if somebody fails, large or small, doesn't make any difference.
Yeah. So
The-
in other words, competition is necessary for
Absolutely.
quality.
Well,
Yeah. And when you mentioned, you see the bad quality of roads or the bad quality of electricity, immediately it comes to mind that there is no competition in these sectors.
Well,
It's a
there's
monopoly
one-
of the state.
There is one side of it, but basically, when I say bathroom is dirty, is not up to the quality. It is not monopoly or any such thing. It is just the habits. It is just the habits, dirty habits. How many people will spit anywhere? I mean, that type of a mental attitude. How many people don't shave in the morning? How many people will not wash their clothes? I mean, I don't mean it is just one point. It is all over. We believe our Hindu philosophy is the simpler you are, the better. What higher thinking and low living or something like that is the ideal of the Hindu society. Now, I think partly that is responsible.
Mr. Kirloskar, you are a graduate of the famous MIT in the United States, and I'm sure that in your organization there must be a lot of attention paid to R&D. But generally, the complaint is that Indian industry pays really no attention to R&D and has no, no push to invest in R&D. What do you think should be done as a policy to see that Indian industry can cooperate with the academic institutions and generate technology within the country?
Well, there are two sides to this question. One is, why don't we have an R&D inside the institution or outside the national, with the national? That's one question. But first is, why don't we have the R&D?
Yeah.
Now, the first question basically is first, I was just reading the other day a book on Japanese history of industry, and a professor has answered this question. The general statement is made that the Japanese do not invent anything new; they only adapt the thing.
Right.
Now, here mentioned that, and he said, when we are trying to develop, when we are behind, to come to the equal of that thing, first let us come to the equality, and then we start progressing. Now, to us, it's still same thing. First, let us be up to the line, equal with their development, and then we can try to go ahead. Today, if you have to invent something yourself or develop something yourself by your R&D, you are going to take time, money, and effort.
Right.
If you pay for it and if you get something, why not get it?
But will that not, continue what's called the dependence syndrome on foreign technology?
Well, I think today there is no dependence provided. Once you start working on it, then you start gradually developing. Without having, if you start from nothing, you are not going to develop at all. You're going to take umpteen years before you'll start doing something. And at the same time, you're on the other side, you're mentioning that my goods must be equal to the foreign goods.
Right.
As a quality. On both sides, you are not going to work successfully. And so either you have one idea that we'll stop everything like Russia did, we don't want to buy anything, but we'll develop ourselves. Well, they did to a point, but they still had to go out and buy this technology. So this idea that buying technology is something wrong is basically wrong. This is one, you see. Let us buy whatever is available, just as much as you don't make your own shirt, you buy it from your tailor, or you buy it ready-made from a shop. Why don't your wife, you ask to learn to sew a shirt and then do it yourself? It is not necessary. You can go and buy it. So similarly, this technology, when it is developed, is perfectly all right to buy. There's nothing wrong about it. And we are thinking every country, whether it's England, America, Germany, Japan, Switzerland, you name anybody, they are buying patents, they are buying things from other people.
But
So,
does that mean that the national R&D labs are irrelevant to the
well,
industrial
well,
situation
I'm
today?
not saying that. You see, today the national, let us see what have they done in last 40 years. National laboratory, I know the was established, the chemical laboratory
Pune.
in Pune in the same time when my factory was started.
I see. Uh-huh.
1948. Now, what is it they have produced in 40 years that would have been useful outside? You see, and then I always been saying to the principal or the director of that institution, because I used to see them many, I say, if you think that your development is right, why don't you go out and start, collect money from outside and start it? Why do you want somebody, Tata or Birla or Kirloskar, or to take it?
Yeah,
You know,
but
once the product development is there, go ahead and do it.
But I put you the question in a different way. Did you make any use at all of the NCL when it was established? And why didn't you make use of the facilities there?
Well, we tried to do it. One day I had gone there. You see, I wanted a certain kind of a product. I had a product from outside. This was not a development. The product, I said, some chemical product. I said, will you tell me how to make this product? Full stop. Because I'm not interested in any development or anything. This product is ready. All I want to know how to make it. And the answer from the director was, once I know what it is, then I'll tell you. I said, look, I don't know what it is. You have to tell me what it is. How do you ask me that what it is, then you're going to develop it? So ultimately it came to nothing.
Yeah.
You see, similarly, other people have tried it. Mm-hmm. We have tried in mechanical engineering laboratories. Hardly anything come. We had, there is a Bangalore internal combustion laboratory in the Tata Institute.
Right.
We tried to utilize that, never came to anything.
Would you say that it is better than for industries to have internal R&D that these?
Well, I don't think I won't condemn these things. You see, the problem is this: when you don't have the internal combustion engine industry, you cannot have a expert in a laboratory to give me any advice, whether it's an internal combustion engine or anything. So, essential point is to develop an industry today from whatever the knowledge around the world is there, start it. Once you start making it, then to make it improve, to make it something better. And I give you here an example. From our internal R&D, we have developed a piston for our engine, which is completely unique. And today, our scientists from our laboratory have been reading papers for the last 3 to 4 years on the development of this piston. In this CEMAC, they call the World Diesel Engine
Conference.
Conference for the diesel engines.
Yeah.
And they have been reading, and it's being appreciated, and it is being patented all over. Now, that comes after 40 years of our industry here. It doesn't come at the beginning. And so this establishment of an industry is an essential part of the R&D. We cannot have R&D first and then get an industry.
Yeah, out of the product or whatever it is. Now, I wanted to ask you something about your presence in Karnataka. The Kirloskar groups are originally from, it's a Maharashtra-based group. What induced you to first invest here in this area of the country?
Well, I think Karnataka, and you see, in our family, we don't have that distinction, whether it's Karnataka, whether it is Maharashtra or anything else. We think all India is one. That's one. Second, the first investment that we made in Karnataka was in 1939-40, of the machine tool industry in Harihar.
Why did you come here?
Now, that's very interesting story. You see, at Kirloskar, we started making machine tools in anticipation. When the World War is coming, there will be shortage of machine tools, so we should go into it. So we started making machine tools in Kirloskar. where the plough factory and agriculture implements were there. Now, the accuracy, the workmanship of a machine tool and a plough are far away from each other. The plough is a pretty rough kind of
Right.
working, whereas the machine tool is a fine working. Now, what we started finding now, when we started making under the same roof, the skill that was required for a machine tool started going into the plough, and the skill of the plough started getting into the machine tool.
I see.
You see, and it was really a tragic condition. And we said, unless we separate it, there will not be progress. So we decided to separate. Once we decided to separate, where do we go? So the idea was, there are choices whether we go to Pune, whether we go here, whether we go there. We had been growing in the Kirloskar has been way out in the blue, no city, etc. And we were running short of workers, and we wanted water, and we had the advantage at that time of the state of Aun. The Raja of Aun was a great help. Because of him, the things have come up.
Right.
So we had a certain soft corner for the Indian states.
I see.
Now, this is one side of it. Way back in 26, when I was first time in Bangalore, I had met the Mirza Ismail Diwanadar. He said, why don't you come to our state? And I said, Lex, when the time comes, we'll certainly look. And certainly the time came within 10, 12 years that we were looking for it. So we checked up with them whether they are interested. Our relations with Mysore Iron Works were very close. At that time, there was the chairman of Mysore Iron Works, Mr. Venkatnaranappa. He was a good friend of ours. So I said, how about we coming to Mysore? He said, oh, with pleasure. So he worked it up, and so we were discussing what we should get, what government of the Mysore is ready to give. And this discussion went on for a good a year. And of course, it used to take by months. You see, sometimes Venkatnaranappa was in Bangalore, we come here. Sometimes he was in Delhi, so we go to there. So it went on like that. So one day came up, and right in Bangalore here, Venkatnaranappa came up. He said, look, Shantanu, tell me what you want. I'm ready to sign it. All the negotiations are off. The Diwan wants the agreement in another 10 minutes. Just tell me. So whatever we had discussed, so we just put one.
Who was the Diwan at that time?
Mirza Ismail.
Mirza Ismail, still there.
And he wanted it in 10 minutes. And so we went in 10 minutes running with the paper. And he said, yes, you agreed to both of you? I said, yes. We signed it. And he said, the land is available tomorrow morning at Harihar. We asked for that land, and we got it. So that's the history of the
Coming to Karnataka. Do you notice that sort of a positive attitude currently in the Karnataka administration?
Impossible. You see, to get anything overnight, in 10 minutes agreement and things like that, those are the days gone.
So it's been very nice talking to you, Mr. Kirloskar. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my opinion.